Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We're going to get started, and we thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank our sponsor, who is the Letty Group, who sponsors our Business Indicator series here on the Seacoast, and then we have Bellwether Community Credit Union, who sponsors our Manchester Business Indicator series. They're sustaining members. They've supported this program for 9 years, and we're so thankful to have them as a part of the community and helping us provide really quality programming for you all. So thank you so much for coming. I'd like to introduce Tony Sulpizio. I'm sorry.
No.
I practiced it too, I know.
Just don't call me for that.
But Tony has over 22 years of experience, ranging from data analytics to operations management, and currently works over in the shipyard. And he is going to talk to us today about how you are making your business decisions. So just a little bit of background. In modern society, we're blasted and with an overwhelming influx of information that can be paralyzing us from making decisions and taking action. So how do we tame the flow and leverage this information to gain the upper hand in business? We're going to talk with Tony a little bit, and he's going to share with us some of those insights. Please feel free. We're going to have questions and kind of a conversation afterwards as well. So Tony has a presentation, and then we can continue the conversation after. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Turn this on here. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yes.
All right.
Can you turn it up one?
Okay. It's not on. Can't hear me. It's all right. I got a deep voice. We can get through this. So again, thank you so much for coming. I know that there's two things here that we have that you'll never get back: my words and your time. So I know it's very valuable here. So I don't want to waste any more of your precious time and giving me this gift. So I do appreciate you coming out. So how are we making our business decisions? Just like Erin had alluded to, we are inundated with information on a daily, moment-by-moment basis. And there are times when we get paralysis by analysis, right? We just don't know what to do with certain things, or where are we going with our businesses, and you can even put this in your own life as well. So there's a lot of good information here. So a summary, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me, where I come from, what I do, what drives our decisions, when does change take place, what is an authentic leader, what is data, how can data analytics help, and why is it important? And then I'm going to put it all together in a summary there, okay? So the first thing about me is I grew up in Washington State, so I'm from the West Coast, right, left side. I spent 10 years in active submarine service, so I'm working on the boats I used to go out on and things like that. So currently work in the DoD for 12 years, and the other 10 was active duty military. MBA Project Management 2014, Data Analytics from SNU in 2016, and then starting out the business in Illuminated Data Solutions, doing business consulting for data analytics, visualizations, and what have you. So what drives our decisions? And you know, you can ask questions, or you know, if I ask a question, you know the answer, just go ahead and pop that out to me. You know, kind of have a conversation as we go along, kind of make things go smooth and things like that. So what's driving our decisions? You know, one thing I was thinking about was when we came here, you all decided to come to this event. You knew it was me that was speaking. You didn't know me from Adam, but you knew what this topic was, and you made choices to get here. So we have, I'm sorry?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. That's all the good stuff, right? So when I was thinking about it, when we think about our decisions, there's several things, and we talk about business, and we talk about our society. There's a couple things here we look at. It's our culture. We make decisions based on our culture. We make decisions based with that, with the technology, with our employees, with the people that we work with, that all these different decisions have to be adjudicated. When we think about it, whether it's a gender gap, whether it's a generation gap, you know, we're talking about millennials, or we're talking about Generation X, or the baby boomers, whatever you want to call it, we have to make those decisions. And then industry. helps us make those decisions. You know, whether we're driven to compete with somebody who's got a better product, or we are in the forefront and we just got to keep on that forefront and leading change. So what is an authentic leader? Anybody can give me a brief definition of what an authentic leader is? Authentic, anybody? Nope, okay. So an authentic leader looks at 3 different areas. I'm going to give you all 3 of them all at once. The authentic leader deals with the organization, has an overall understanding of what the organizational goals are, has an overall view of where things are going to be headed towards, and has a good understanding of what is needed to get to that position. The second thing that they have in mind are their employees. All right, we have, I'm sure we could go around the room and we could share different situations where we look at, we've had a bad experience with a supervisor or a boss or CEO or somebody who's just not given us what we thought we should have as an employee. And then we can go back and do the same thing and say, you know, we have this awesome guy I used to work for. He's no longer with the company anymore, right? It's usually the good ones move on, right? And then that authentic has awareness of themselves, right? Self-awareness. Now, when I talk about self-awareness, I talk about not only their strengths, and they don't use their strengths as a baseball bat. They use their strengths as something to encourage the employees and motivate the group or the organization, and they know their weaknesses. I think a sign of one of the greatest signs of an authentic leader is humility. And with that humility comes a servant leader. I'm very much a proponent of servant leaders. Some of the studies and some of the things that I've researched have shown that a servant leader doesn't just think of themselves, but they put themselves into the life of their employee and works for them. Right? Me as a manager, I don't want to put something in front of my employees that I wouldn't have done myself. Right? I want to be able to look at their performance and things as something that I would do my own. Right? Because when it boils down to is me as a manager, I'm responsible for my area, whether my employee does the work or not. So if I'm encouraging them and showing them how to do the work, then they're going to be able to produce what I need to get done for my manager. So where does change take place? Again, I mentioned real briefly, we all decided to come to this one spot. And I think change takes there's 2 avenues in which change can take place. The first one is fostered change, right? This is an initiated change, fostered change. It's done through innovation, done through new knowledge, done through a willingness to change, and it's you see a need and you take the lead and you change what you have to do, right? It's just like if you are wherever you came from, you drove here, whichever was the fastest way you thought necessary, you were going to take those route to get here, and those are fostered changes. Wouldn't we better as we live our lives and go through our business to help foster change? And one of the biggest things with that is innovation. Being able to think beyond where we're at and increase our capacity in learning and increasing our capacity to do more in less time. The other thing that I look at is forced change, right? So you have foster change, somebody that is, you work as a team or you work together and you bring about change. And then you have forced change, right? And I know that there was quite some things that were going on out here and they force you to go one way or another. And sometimes we don't like to be forced. But when I look at forced change, we look at company setbacks. Company has to do some reorganizations or whatever the case may be, and it forces people to change, whether it's change their career, change their mind on the direction they were going, whatever the case may be, but they're forced to do it. And then management turnover, right? And when somebody takes over, that new manager wants to make some changes, so those employees either have to adapt, or they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to do something else. And then catastrophe. And I'm afraid that a lot of times when we are forced to change is because something bad happened. I work over here at the shipyard, and if you remember A Fateful Day, in 1963, April 10th, the Thresher sank off the coast here. And it's very much a monument here in the seacoast area about that day. And there's people that I've known that had known somebody on that, or had a relative or things like that. And that catastrophe, though, brought about some good change, but it was forced. That change was forced. So when we fast forward, you think of some of the accidents that you've seen in the news, where these submarines then have come back. They've had a problem, but because of what has happened before, the Navy was forced to change, but yet then other lives were saved through that. So when we have our changes, right, that's how we make our determination where we're going. So we need to look at our forced changes not necessarily as a bad thing, but sometimes it takes bad things to force us to do what we're supposed to be doing. So where can data analytics help? And this is where I think that a lot of changes can happen, right? So every single person, if you were to step into a new job tomorrow, say you got a new job and you're ready to go, you step into that job with two things. You step into your job with education, and you step in that job with experience. And nobody can take that away from you, right? That's empowering. Whether you're working in your field of education or not, you still come in with some sort of education, some sort of experience, your life lessons, things that you've learned. Nobody can take that away from you. What I'm going to offer is a third leg to that stool, and that's data analytics. So what is data analytics? Basically, it's a fancy term, right? It's the scientific method for leveraging existing data to help with the current future decision-making framework. Right? And we can see here, we can gain actionable insights. We can see the past, present, and predict the future. Third leg of decision-making, and then show us what we're not seeing. One of the greatest compliments I got in some of the work I do was when I presented my work to a supervisor. They said, you know what, this really helped me because I didn't know what I wasn't doing. So I was able to shed some light on some areas that we needed to shore up and needed to get fixed. So now we think about our decision making, right? We made a decision. Well, if I have a GPS now to help me get to the fastest route, I don't have to make those decisions. I can rely on my GPS. Now, I have a good sense of direction, so even though the GPS will lead me somewhere, I can make decisions as we go. Right? And I look at data analytics in such a manner where we can look at it as a GPS. Now, we want to be careful, and I've ran into this on several occasions where people feel threatened by data, by the answers in data, by the actions, by the insights that come from data, because they're like, what do you need me for? But we actually do. Because when I bring in data, and I do some insights, and I get some actionable insights from it, I need somebody who's knowledgeable and has the experience to execute. Me as a data guy, I don't know how to execute. I just showed you what was in the data. The data has a story, and I want to bring that story out, and it's up to you to implement that story. So as we think about decision making, we think about how we're doing this, what kind of effects does data have on our decisions? Right? You think about some of the statistics that come out on this, that, and the other thing. And in the past, have you made decisions based on these statistics? It's statistically, plane travel is still the safest way to go, or whatever the case may be. I might be making that up now, but as we think about, we make decisions every single day. Based on what? Sometimes it's a gut feeling. Sometimes it's an educated guess. Sometimes it's, I know that is a fact because I've done it before. Other times it's, this is what it's showing me. Now I can make those decisions. So as we think about making our decisions, the key word that I wanted to point out up here is this leveraging, right? I'm going to leverage the information I'm gathering to make a better decision later on, and then we look at the future, right? We look at the past. We have historical data. We can go back a long time and pull that data together and look at where we were at to where we're at now, to where we're going, and give us some good decision-making policies. Maybe even have to change the framework in which we make decisions. Whether it's here at SNU or in your place of business, we have to be able to be agile enough to change. People, I know that in my life, sometimes I'm resistant to change, right? So with that change, there's two types of people that come with change. There's change agents, those people that initiate the change. And then there's change recipients, those who will receive the change. So in that same relationship, not only do we have a change agent and change recipient, we also have a leader and a follower. Right? And I look at it from the idea that the follower is just as important as the leader is. Because if a leader doesn't have any followers, they're just out for a walk. Okay? They don't have anything. So a leader needs a follower just like the follower needs the leader. And we think about the idea of, you know what, I need somebody to show me how to do this. We may not be in a leadership position, but we need to be able to look at this team and work together. You know, I'm not in the mindset of, you know, a command and control. I'm more of, hey, let's see what kind of thing can you bring to the table to help this team go forward and foster that change. Right? And I think through that we get growth. Right? Not only do we grow together, but we grow upward as well. Right? We plant our roots in our education, we plant our roots in our experience, and then as we bud out, as we produce the fruit, right, whatever we're doing, it's through that fostering, right? So what are the effects of data analytics on decision-making process? What can it affect? What can it do for you? And then what can happen if you don't use data analytics? Right? So if you think about it, I don't know what I don't know until I know. So it's kind of a weird, funny way of saying it, but as we think about it, right, our knowledge is only as much as we want to have. Right? We've all been through school. We understand the basics. We understand some specifics. But we don't know until we don't know. And if I don't, and then once I find out, then that's where that decision-making process comes in. And once I then figure it out, what I haven't been doing. And this is some of the research that I'm getting into is how does that affect? At what point in time do I decide that this change needs to happen? Or I need to make a decision here. Right? You're driving down the street and you see a cop car, what's the initial reaction? Right? You take your foot off, you could be going the speed limit, you're still going to take your foot off the gas. It's just the way it is. Right? Same thing is true as if you see an accident or you see the blue lights on. What are you going to see? Oh my goodness, can I get pulled over or something? Right? So you know certain things happen, initiators that come into our lives to help us, right? And I think data analytics can do that. And then there are some risks of the unknown, but there is a way to do risk mitigation, right? We all understand what risk mitigation is, and taking, you know, is this enough? Do I have enough information? Even though I don't know what's going to happen exactly, but I know enough that I think that the risk is going to be worth its reward. So then how does it all work? I'm just going to give you all this. Right? So the overview is we all have leaders, we have decisions, we have information. Now we need understanding, we need change, and then we need to take action. Right? So if I know, let's say I have the cure for cancer, right in my hand. I have the cure. But I'm standing right here as a problem. Right? We need to take action. We need to move forward as we look at, we start to get the knowledge, we start to get the understanding, we start to get these things and present it to the leaders and make decision makers. Then what are we doing with it? What do we have? Where are we going? How can we do different? What can we do better? Right? And we need to keep driving forward. And as we said at the beginning, sometimes we can get paralysis by analysis and just not real sure. You know, one of the knee-jerk reactions, oh, you did your analysis wrong, go redo it. So as we think about our decision making, we think about it, you know, how can I get more information? Right? So decision making, right? And that's all I have.
That's awesome. I had something come across my LinkedIn earlier in the week, and that was the Elon Musk, his email to his company, and that it made me think of it because you're talking about servant leadership and also catastrophe. So something really bad happened, and one of the workers on the line got hurt, and he put it out to the company where he was like, if anyone gets hurt, I want to know first, and I'm going to go down and do the job that person did getting hurt so that I can understand better. Like, having that awareness of being able to make better decisions and make changes happen from the top down is really nice.
Yeah, that's good. Absolutely. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
You had mentioned gut reaction too.
Yep.
I'm always skeptical of gut reaction in its purest form. Don't you think it's sort of like your brain is a processor, and you, over the years, you've collected all this data and you don't even remember it, but something's triggering that forward?
I think that gut reaction goes back to the first two stools I mentioned, legs of the stool I mentioned, was your experience and your education. If I've already been here before, you know what, I kind of have an idea what's going to happen here, right?
So in some respects, prior experience contextualizes the data you're looking at.
I believe so. So one of the things that we look at is, if you bring me a data set, I don't know anything about it. I don't know if there's anomalies. I don't know if, and people who know the information can just look at the data set and they haven't done anything with it. Said, you know what, there's some things wrong with it. There's something not right. You know, like when you hear a symphony, somebody who's really in tune with the music and somebody's off just a little bit, you know what, that person's off. So when you gain that experience, whatever information that you have with you, you're able to look at it and say, there's something wrong here. Right? So me as I'll say a data analyst, right? So if I look at data and I say, somebody comes over here and says, hey, I need you to analyze this data, and I can bring you an analysis. But it's going to be up to that data owner or that data SME to be able to have those experiences or have those prior knowledge. You know, this just doesn't look right. Let's re-look at this again.
So running with that a little more, maybe on the flip side, would you think indecision or analysis paralysis comes from a lack of experience where you can contextualize?
I think that it could be, absolutely. But I also think that analysis by paralysis is you want to do too much with what you have. You have this data set, you want all these answers, and you can't, it just doesn't work that way. But I also believe what you're saying is true as well. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think in our company we have, and don't get me wrong, but I think there's a lot of like sugarcoating within the company. So when we analyze things, we try to get the positive data out of negative situation. So we know our sales are down, our customer counts are down. We see all the data, but we magically will come up, oh, but we're selling more of this that we didn't do last year, or we're doing better this that we didn't last year, but it's not even relevant to the case because we stink at this point in time. But somehow, and that's, a lot of times I put in that position because it looks like I do okay with the numbers, and I will be told, okay, you have a room of 30 people, you don't have to scare them away, so you need to give them something good. And going through data and find something good, almost like impossible if there's no good.
Right.
And I think that's what it's nice to have a third party involved when you're not relevant to the issue. You just show it the way it is, and you don't have to be concerned about personal feelings and who doesn't do the job the right way.
A lot of things that I've run into is just that issue is I have a tag on my email that says data doesn't tell any lies. It doesn't have any agendas. It doesn't like anybody. So if you think about it, if you truly take the data for what it is, it's going to give you the truth. It's going to give you, you know, like you go to the doctors and they say, well, you've got this, 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 and this, and you don't do anything about it. You know, we want to get fixed, right? We want to do better, but we take it and look at data and we're like, this analyst doesn't know what he's doing. Because this is all, our company's all messed up, right? When in actuality, that's just the barometer from the data that's coming out of it. So, yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
So just to follow on that, how important do you think visualization tools are, maybe to sort of, sort of anonymize that sort of kind of
I think
bias?
data visualization tools are key. Because I can look at, anybody can, not anyone can look at a set of data and, yep, this is wrong. When you start pulling visualizations, and I had an aha moment with a supervisor where we were presenting, I was presenting some data, and then I put the visualizations to it and made a dashboard and made it interactive where you can start looking at the different years and you can start looking at the different clients, you can start looking at the different vendors and so on and so forth. And he saw all these things moving. He was like, oh my goodness. I never saw that before. You know, I think part of data analytics is the visualizations. One of the things that I was in course development with SNU, a new course that we developed with the MIS degree is MIS 350. It's Business Intelligence and Reporting, and it's centered around Microsoft Power BI. Microsoft Power BI is basically an extension of Excel, but it's a platform where you just produce visualizations. You take the data that you have, and it's all automated. And if you have a map, you can click on a state, and then all the other graphs or charts you have will change based on what you've clicked on. So I think visualizations are very important to the analysis part of it. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
It's only a question. So as an accountant, I've always been taught, you manage the business by the numbers, right? I also, early in my career, I worked at a software company, and their product was around business intelligence.
Yep.
And what their product was, they would go into a company, and they would say, this data exists in 10 different places, so which version of the truth is actually the truth? So if you apply that, what you're doing, a company's really ready to leverage analytics because they're getting data, but they may only have half the truth or 3/4. How do they know which is really the right version of the truth?
Right. So when you think about the different avenues or the different areas that data can come in, I think the very first step you have to do is normalize the data. You have to I would pull in all of that data, and if it's the same, it's just coming from different sources, I would validate. I would take one and validate it and have that as my measuring tool for everything else. So then I know that this one source is good, and then I'm going to look at these other sources. I may not even need those other sources because I'm using this one, right? So multiple sources is not good because then you run into that problem. You're going to run into a problem where, you know what, I don't know what to do because this one says this and this one says this. On the flip side of that is, well, maybe this is looking at the front side of the house and this one's looking at the back side of the house. And if you're able then to analyze that, you're going to be able to see, maybe get a 3D view of what you're doing based on those different sources. So it's just that process of, getting on the grinding wheel and getting through the analysis of it.
Because the company I worked at, one of the reasons why they were able to be very successful was because they were able to show companies that you're trying to make decisions based on this data, it isn't even the final data. So this is kind of a similar tag along that if you're truly doing this right, and like I say, normalize the data, then you truly can manage the business by the numbers because you know it's right. And you're not hoping it's right.
So the one thing that I push the hardest, and I work in quality, is I told my boss when I first got the job, I've only been there just over a year, I said, I'm going to run quality through data. I said, I'm going to be able to see these programs through the data. I won't even have to mess with the program managers. I'm going to give you the data, I'm going to give you what it says, right? But the very first thing I pushed on was I want source. I want the parent source data. Because like you said, we have these pockets of data in our business that, hey, I've got it, this is my information silo, nobody else can have it. And then they leave, now I have this, what does this person use this data for? Right? So what I do is I want to bust down those silos and get right to the source. Now if I have the source, everybody can tie it to the source, whatever they're looking at for the data. So.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Part of what on the analytics, I'm the CFO, and I actually work for a former CFO, and our opinion on data is very, very different. And part of what you're talking about is actually having courage to tell what the data says, right?
Say that one more time.
Courage to say what the data says,
Yes.
right? And so I use like the CPA exam as an example. If you get a 68, you fail. If you get a 74, you pass. Well, if you get a 68, it's not like I failed, but no, you failed. To drive the energy to make it better to pass the next time. So that's the part where when you were saying, how do you spin that data? People want to hear the positive. They don't like to hear negative.
Right.
And so I always hate to be the negative person, but I'm always the one that I believe that the honest truth about what the data is saying is going to drive a better result than trying to make a better position for what the data can be interpreted to be.
Absolutely. So when we think about business, right, we think about the business that whatever we're in, we boil it down to its finest part, is we want to do good. right? I know it's not proper English, forgive me. But we want to do better. We want to be at the forefront. We want to have our goods and services out there. We want to make money. We want to be able to take vacation, so on and so forth. But yet there are times where we're just like, but I don't want to know the truth about it. And I think that's the first step. And I told my boss, I said, you're going to look at some of these things that come out. He's been doing it for 30 years. I've only been there for 13 months. That I'm going to see that he's never seen. Not because I'm smart, it's just because I see it in the data. And I know what data does. And he's going to have to make those decisions. But you're right. You're going to have to be able to say, and this is what I've suggested, I think you make a date of amnesty. This date forward, whatever happened in the past stays in the past. We just need to fix it. We need to go forward and fix it. And then, as we go forward, we're going to be able to see, I don't want a 74%. I want 100. I want a 99. So give a day of amnesty and say, okay, if you messed up before, let's forget about it and move on. But you've got to be willing to change today. That's the way I would approach that as well. Yeah? Good point. Anybody else? That's it. Thank you.
Hi. So thank you all. We still have some time, but I did want to take just a moment and point out a few people in the audience. We have 3 members of our board of directors here, alumni board of directors. So Rich, Dave, and Jeff are all here. Please ask them questions if you have questions about alumni involvement or being on the board of directors. We always really appreciate our alumni coming back and supporting our students as well as other alumni programs. So please, if you're interested in giving back in any way, you can talk with Amanda or myself or any of Dawn or the board of directors, and we'd be happy to reach out to you with more information, either through our mock interviews or other on-campus and at a distance opportunities. So thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoy some food and a beverage and enjoy the networking as well. Thank you.
Thank you.